In the future, a catastrophe unleashes countless monsters and mutated creatures that tear human civilization apart. While the outside world sinks into chaos and people slaughter one another just to survive, this young man somehow lives the life of his dreams. Every day, he either takes his dog for a walk or relaxes by the water with a fishing rod. His warehouse is packed with food, so he can eat and sleep without ever worrying about starving. On top of that, he is granted a skill that opens spatial gates, turning monster hunting into something that feels like cheating. His ultimate tactic is simple: land a cheap shot, slip back behind the gate, then wait for another ambush. The monsters are furious, but they can do nothing as he repeatedly drives his spear into them from behind. Inside a silent room, the female secretary bows respectfully to the president of South Korea. "Mr. President, the national address will begin in 1 minute." Glancing at the digital clock showing 8:59 and 20 seconds, the leader sighs and wonders how time passed so quickly. The national power grid has just been restored, leaving only 30 seconds to prepare. The moment the signal connects, President Jiang Muntek appears on every screen and addresses his beloved citizens. Before getting to the main point, he urges everyone to turn on their televisions so that as many people as possible can hear the truth. From private homes to giant street displays, every eye turns toward him. The president apologizes for the sudden broadcast and for the inconvenience caused by the power restrictions. He officially announces that martial law was declared at exactly 9 p.m. on the 15th. The military has taken control of the media and key production facilities, while every major road has been sealed. In the suffocating silence, he calmly asks his aide for a cigarette. Ignoring concerns that opposition lawmakers will explode with outrage, he takes a deep drag and slowly exhales the smoke. He then reveals the true reason behind this seemingly insane martial law. "Because I want us to face the apocalypse with order." By now, everyone realizes that the scenario from the game's survival life is unfolding in the real world. The meteor from that game, Unzambi, is blazing toward Earth at terrifying speed. According to reports received before dawn, the United States military has completely failed to shoot it down. Unzambi eventually crashes near Shizuoka, Japan, causing catastrophic damage beyond anything anyone could imagine. Even worse, the people in the area are gradually transforming into bloodthirsty zombies. The cursed zombie spores released by the meteor will ride the wind into their country at 1 this afternoon. With a grave expression, President Jiang Muntek continues, "My beloved citizens, we cannot avoid the coming zombie outbreak. However, their research suggests that a small number of people, including veteran players, may resist the transformation. For that reason, he has prepared 5 shelters at the locations marked on the map and orders everyone to find a way there. To ensure safety, the shelters will remain sealed for 1 full year. Survival manuals for fighting monsters have also been prepared and will be scattered across the country by aircraft. At exactly 10 tonight, every nuclear power plant will shut down. All communication, including the internet and mobile phones, will be cut off completely." Fighting back tears, the president says, "This is the last gift I can give you as the leader of this nation. May you all live long and stay strong." The television screen goes black, bringing the fateful address to an end. The story returns to several months earlier, when Kang Seon Ho was still a gamer known as Kimbap Lover. Every day, he and his closest friends would gather to grind through the apocalyptic survival game's survival life. The moment it launched, the game became a sensation and quickly climbed to the top of the rankings. But its difficulty was so brutal that, after a year, only 4 players remained. Kang Seon Ho's friends assumed the game was about to shut down and decided to leave. One by one, their avatars faded away as they promised to return to real life. Kang Seon Ho stands frozen among the surrounding shadows. Bitterly, he realizes their journey has truly reached its end, yet deep down he still is not ready to let go. As the other veterans abandon the game, he alone remains behind. He tirelessly records update videos and streams day and night, clinging to the faint hope that his friends might someday return. Months pass. The final tutorial is eventually made easier, and the game's early-stage systems are gradually improved. Alongside ordinary zombies and fantasy monsters, terrifying mutants begin to appear. Kang Seon Ho is thrilled by the massive update, but his friends have completely lost interest and no longer bother logging in. In the end, survival life has only 1 player left. During a desperate battle against the colossal flaming insect, Kang Seon Ho fails 300 times before finally killing it. Yet the victory brings him no joy. Realizing it is time to leave this world behind, he decisively removes his virtual reality headset. The final cross-server battle update becomes the moment he officially says goodbye. Unable to throw away the hard drive filled with precious memories, he carefully stores it in the archive. Leaving the name Kimbap Lover behind, Kang Seon Ho returns to real life. A customer's loud call snaps him out of his thoughts. "Hey, 2 orders of spicy rice cakes and 2 rolls of kimbap," he hurriedly answers. "Coming right up. Give me a moment." It has now been 3 months since he returned to ordinary life as the owner of this restaurant. The reason for his nickname, Kimbap Lover, is simple. He has been running this eatery for 3 years. And as anyone can see, business is going quite well. It is the family shop he took over after his parents died when he was in 11th grade. As he works, a familiar voice suddenly calls out with excitement. "Hey, Kang Seon Ho!" It is Mi-kyung, his neighbor and friend since middle school, who still visits often. Seeing the crowded shop, she walks in with a bright smile and teases him about how well business is doing. Mi-kyung asks whether he has heard the news and shows him an article about a meteor approaching Earth. Most people think it is a joke, but Kang Seon Ho goes silent when he sees that its name is identical to the meteor in survival life. That very evening, a status window suddenly appears before his eyes, leaving him too stunned to speak. Terrified, Kang Seon Ho stumbles backward and screams when he sees his personal information floating in midair. The system abruptly forces him to become a rookie in survival life's tutorial stage. Images of zombies and horrifying apocalyptic scenes from the game flood back into his mind, making his body tremble. Still suspecting some elaborate prank, Kang Seon Ho stares at the command prompt asking him to begin. Taking a gamble, he shouts the command to open a spatial gate. A blue labyrinth gate suddenly rises in the middle of the shop after a burst of light, looking exactly like the one from the game. Kang Seon Ho can only wonder whether the real world is actually turning into survival life. To verify it, he checks his phone and freezes at the news image of the blazing zombie meteor. Grabbing his head, he tries to calm himself, insisting that the identical name could still be a coincidence, and that he should not jump to conclusions. Even so, fear takes hold as he imagines the worst-case scenario if everything is real. Looking at the gate radiating mysterious energy, Kang Seon Ho tells himself the proof must be inside. Above it, a cold warning appears: 32 days remain until the true apocalypse begins. Standing before the glowing blue spatial gate, Kang Seon Ho is certain that evidence of the apocalypse lies beyond it. He reaches out, then stops himself at the last moment. Charging in blindly would be far too dangerous. Changing his plan, he performs a small test by pushing a large ladle through the lower edge of the gate. Kang Seon Ho slowly twists it around to feel what lies on the ground beyond. Seeing dirt stuck to the ladle, he realizes the other side may not be a terrifying dungeon. He suspects the gate might teleport him somewhere else on Earth. After packing supplies and completing the most basic safety checks, Kang Seon Ho shoulders his backpack and makes up his mind. Should I really go in? With no further hesitation, he steps into the center of the light. Kang Seon Ho gasps as a lush green forest beneath a crystal-clear sky appears before him. The magnificent scenery leaves him wondering whether any of this can be real. The biting cold quickly drags him back to reality. His phone is now useless because there is no signal at all. He realizes he has arrived in a remote wilderness that ordinary people would find nearly impossible to reach. To avoid getting lost, Kang Seon Ho marks the entrance on a tree and records the exact time he arrived. As he follows the trail, he marvels at the breathtaking landscape and feels as though he has truly entered survival life. Then a strange rustle from the bushes instantly puts him on guard. A white deer with vivid blue antlers steps into view, identified by the name Validia floating above it. Kang Seon Ho is stunned because both its name and appearance match a creature from survival life. He wonders whether this place is even Earth anymore. The deer stares at him without moving, which startles him, but fortunately it is not aggressive. He tells himself that running into a stone monkey or a saber-tusked boar would be a real disaster. Still, he is puzzled because he has never seen this valley deer appear in the game before. Although every instinct tells him this place is deeply connected to survival life, he stubbornly rejects the thought because he cannot accept that humanity may soon be destroyed. That fragile hope vanishes when he finds a strange glowing tree in the forest. The words sun apple float before him. Stunned, Kang Seon Ho plucks a golden apple and takes a cautious bite. The system immediately announces that he has gained experience for eating a sun apple for the first time. Kang Seon Ho is shaken when its flavor matches the expensive juice once sold in the game's shop. Damn it! This confirms everything. His doubts harden into certainty when he also discovers traces of goblin waste on nearby rocks. Clutching his head, Kang Seon Ho forces himself to accept the brutal truth. Come on, Kang Seon Ho. It is time to face reality. With the apocalypse approaching and his worst suspicion confirmed, he immediately leaves through the gate and returns home to prepare. He pulls out the dust-covered hard drive and reviews old videos from the game's early stages. Never did he imagine that his passion-driven streams would one day become this useful. Only 32 days remain until the apocalypse. Kang Seon Ho studies his survival life footage, revisiting a game packed with cruel and frustrating mechanics. The most terrifying is the Iron Plague, a disease that devours metal and turns modern machines into useless scrap in an instant. This monstrous plague could push human civilization straight back to the Stone Age. Even though it weakens after 6 months to a year depending on the region, that is more than enough time to destroy the modern world. However, Kang Seon Ho possesses an enormous advantage: his personal spatial gate. He theorizes that objects carried through it might escape the Iron Plague's effects. To prepare for long-term survival, Kang Seon Ho decides to spend all his savings on supplies. He buys everything from food, medicine, and tools to self-sufficient equipment such as solar panels. Browsing online forums, he can only shake his head at the chaos in the comments. At daybreak, he immediately goes out to buy more gear and completes a face-to-face deal for a 6.5mm hunting rifle. Holding the vital weapon, he thanks the seller for making the transaction so quickly. The seller replies cheerfully that he needed the money just as badly. On the way home with the gun case, Kang Seon Ho briefly wonders whether he is overreacting. Then he reassures himself that even if the apocalypse never comes, it will only take 2 or 3 years to rebuild his savings. Back at the shop, he posts a notice saying it will close for 1 year and makes it clear that it is not for sale. As he stands outside in thought, Mi Kyung's alarmed voice suddenly rings out. "What on earth, Kang Seon Ho?" Mi Kyung looks at the notice and anxiously asks whether he is quitting the business. Scratching his head, Kang Seon Ho claims the shop is old and only needs renovation. She immediately starts teasing him, asking whether he has made a fortune. He can only laugh awkwardly and insist it is nothing like that. The place is simply too worn down. He hurriedly says goodbye and leaves to handle his errands, leaving Mi Kyung behind as she hesitates over something she wants to say. Watching her walk away, he wonders what she was about to tell him. He could easily ask, but Kang Seon Ho stays silent because more urgent matters lie ahead. Returning to the shop, he firmly commands the spatial gate to open. He has confidence in his playstyle, which has always relied on genuine physical ability like that of a professional player. As a veteran gamer, he knows how important raw physical strength is in this brutal world. In survival life, stats do not rise automatically with levels. They must be earned through hunting and exploration. Kang Seon Ho begins practicing archery in the deep forest, wondering whether it will really help. To his surprise, drawing the bow is far easier than expected. Again and again, he trains with the belief that anything is possible if his aim is true. Suddenly, the image of a strange man appears and urges him to shoot. Startled, Kang Seon Ho asks whether he really means right now. He focuses, draws the bowstring tight, and aims straight at the target. In that instant, an odd connection to skills from his past seems to awaken. The arrow slices through the air in a perfect arc and buries itself in the bullseye, stunning even him. Looking at his hands, Kang Seon Ho blurts out, "What was that? Was I Legolas in a past life?" Drawing properly takes some effort, but he decides the test shot was not bad at all. With the basic preparations complete, he moves to the next phase of his plan. 2 enormous problems remain: testing himself against real monsters and finding a safe place to store supplies. With no intention of fighting empty-handed, Kang Seon Ho begins planning how to move every purchased weapon and resource into this space for safekeeping. While walking, he spots more radiant golden apples and cannot contain his excitement. "This is insane! My luck is incredible!" Preparing for every possibility and planning ahead are his top priorities, so he begins following tracks through the forest. I am sure I saw it around here." At last he finds what he has been searching for: goblin droppings. By examining the tracks, he can identify the monster's territory and locate a small target for testing his strength. Kang Seon Ho discovers a lone goblin separated from its group, making it the perfect opponent for his first real combat trial. Night falls faster than expected, and distant wolf howls make the atmosphere even more tense. "Damn, it got dark much sooner than I thought. At least those howls sound far away." He carefully approaches the valley and finally spots his prey hiding near the stream. The status window confirms it is a cowardly level 1 goblin, ideal as a beginner target. Kang Seon Ho slowly raises his bow, holds his breath, and aims. "There you are. Do not move." With a sharp whistle, the arrow flies perfectly true and pierces the monster. It manages only one painful scream before collapsing. Kang Seon Ho coldly studies the result and decides there is no reason to waste a second arrow on an enemy that is already down. Refusing to give it time to recover, he rushes in to press his advantage. Even with the arrow lodged in its body, the goblin fights back wildly with its crude weapon. The two clash in a fierce melee, their weapons ringing through the silent forest. Determination burns in Kang Seon Ho's eyes as he grits his teeth and pours everything into the finishing blow. "You bastard!" he roars as the monster struggles desperately. After a violent struggle, his blade finally pierces its body. The goblin lets out a final shriek and collapses, officially slain by the restaurant owner. The system immediately announces that he has earned 5 points. Kang Seon Ho drops to the ground, breathing hard from exhaustion, but his face shines with joy. "I killed it! Ha ha, I actually did it!" Once he regains his composure, he collects the loot, ginkgo powder and vegetable oil. He calculates that combining the two will create a magical ointment that should prove extremely useful later. He quickly realizes the corpse must be dealt with at once. He needs to dig a hole before the stench attracts predators or turns this place into a dangerous goblin graveyard. While working beside the stream, Kang Seon Ho suddenly stops when he notices fish swimming nearby. Are those red salmon? A horrifying memory from survival life flashes through his mind. If this is the valley where red salmon live, then the truth is far worse than he thought. No way. Behind him, a pair of enormous red eyes ignites in the darkness, radiating murderous pressure. A massive, grotesque creature lumbers into view beneath the horrifying name Maobia. Kang Seon Ho freezes, sensing death closing in as he faces a monster far beyond his current strength. I am finished. Meanwhile, the countdown continues without mercy. Only 31 days remain until the true apocalypse. As he faces death, memories of his days as the streamer Kim Bap lover suddenly flood his mind. He remembers lively broadcasts where he welcomed his audience, and created videos cataloging the monsters of the deep forest. A wealthy viewer with the ironic name Pullman once donated 5,000 with an excited message, electrifying the stream. Kang Seon Ho smiled brightly and thanked him for the support. After covering Goblins and Kobolds in the previous broadcast, he warned viewers to stay far away from bee-creepers. But the truly terrifying rulers of the forest, he insisted, were werewolves and Aobia. According to his analysis, Aobia's territorial behavior had destroyed the balance of the monster ecosystem and turned them into absolute rulers. Watching the old footage now, Kang Seon Ho feels a wave of nostalgia. Those really were wonderful days. He remembers virtual friends like Gimmon and Old King Dog, people who shared his passion. He had even explained in detail how to deal with Aobia. Yet now, at the edge of death, he cannot understand why only those happy memories return. Could this be the so-called life flashing before your eyes phenomenon people experience before death? Kang Seon Ho immediately rejects the idea. It feels more like a memory his old friends sent to help him regain his composure. He forces himself to think calmly. Based on his knowledge of the game, Aobia tears apart anything in sight whenever it is hungry. The fact that the gigantic walking mummy is still standing perfectly still means it is not hungry right now. In other words, only one thing could have ruined its mood: he trespassed into the red salmon's territory. His only chance of keeping his life is to reveal his hand and gamble everything. Kang Seon Ho reminds himself that even if his mind belongs to Kim Bap lover, this body is still his real one. He grits his teeth, knowing he must act immediately to survive. Come at me! Kang Seon Ho roars in challenge. Aobia's crimson eyes flare as it charges forward at terrifying speed. Kang Seon Ho knows the creature is extremely sensitive to light, and that weakness is his only chance to turn the battle around. He has a single opportunity. Pulling out a high-powered flashlight, he prepares his decisive move. To maximize the effect, he must shine it directly into the monster's eye. Kang Seon Ho boldly rushes in and leaps onto the colossal creature. He presses the flashlight against its eye and switches it to maximum power. A blinding burst of white light erupts. Aobia screams in pain and loses all sense of direction for an instant. Then an alarm rings repeatedly, dragging Kang Seon Ho back to reality. He wakes on the floor, his entire body aching as though he truly fought a battle. Seeing that the clock reads 8 in the morning, he wonders whether he passed out immediately after escaping through the spatial gate. The memories of fighting the goblin and confronting Aobia remain painfully vivid. Shuddering, he swears he will never face that gigantic monster again, even if it kills him. Hunger begins gnawing at him. He suddenly remembers that he has eaten nothing since yesterday afternoon. As Kang Seon Ho tries to stand, his legs give out and he collapses back to the floor. Exhausted, he mutters that there is no strength left in his legs. Remembering the bag he brought back through the gate, he pulls out a sun apple and takes a huge bite. A notification immediately confirms that its effect is restoring his stamina. Warm energy flows through his body, and he finally feels alive again. Once his strength returns, he decides to fill his growling stomach immediately. At a restaurant, Kang Seon Ho is surprised to find Mi Kyung sitting right across from him. He awkwardly asks why she is there, but she only smiles and says this is her favorite place to eat. With Mi Kyung already at the table, Kang Seon Ho has no choice but to accept a dining companion. During the meal, he suddenly brings up their previous conversation and asks whether she tried opening her status window. Mi Kyung eagerly confirms that she did. Only then does Kang Seon Ho understand why she had hesitated to tell him something earlier. Mi Kyung shows him a news report about cash mysteriously vanishing from convenience stores and insists that the phenomenon is real. Looking at her serious face, Kang Seon Ho wonders whether she is simply naive or genuinely pure-hearted. When she asks about him, he chooses to lie. I tried too, but unfortunately nothing appeared. Under the circumstances, he believes the lie is completely justified. His spatial gate is a personal skill, not something meant for teamwork. Revealing his greatest advantage before his safety is guaranteed would be the same as offering up his own life during the apocalypse. That is why Mi Kyung's question about awakening carries such special meaning to him. Suddenly, Mi Kyung lowers her head in guilt. Kang Seon Ho, I am sorry. When he stares at her in confusion, she tearfully admits that she lied about something. Seeing how remorseful she looks, Kang Seon Ho gently reassures her. She does not have to tell him now, there is still time, and she can explain when she feels ready. After saying goodbye, he returns home to find a mountain of packages stacked outside as all his orders begin arriving. He greets the delivery driver with a smile and thanks him for the hard work. The driver cheerfully replies that it is simply his job. Kang Seon Ho quickly carries the assorted supplies to the rooftop and second floor so they can be put to use. He opens the boxes and prepares the equipment for today's operation: a gas mask, a fireproof suit, a fire axe, spray paint, and a handheld telescope. Today's mission is to locate a secure place that can serve as a shelter. Resting the axe on his shoulder, Kang Seon Ho tells himself that he has to claim it. He steps decisively through the spatial gate and enters the forest. Finding a shelter turns out to be easier than expected. While tracking old goblin traces earlier, he had already discovered a suspicious-looking location. Hidden behind the bushes, Kang Seon Ho studies the entrance to a pitch-black cave and thinks it would make an excellent base. First, however, he must identify exactly what kind of monster lies inside. He pulls out the telescope for a closer look. Spotting footprints pressed into the sandy ground, he reacts in surprise. They are kobold tracks. A sinister grin spreads across Kang Seon Ho's face as he marvels at his luck. His plan is to use smoke to wipe the monsters out without exhausting himself. After carefully checking the wind direction, Kang Seon Ho notes that kobolds are active during the day, so they must be sleeping now. That makes his attack even more lethal. He gathers dry wood piece by piece and builds a massive pile directly in front of the cave. Wondering whether it is enough, he begins pouring gasoline over it. Only one step remains: lighting the fire and burning the kobolds inside. At that moment, the first two kobolds begin emerging from the darkness, and Kang Seon Ho identifies them immediately. Rather than hiding, he casually greets the kobolds with deliberate provocation. "Oh, hello." Taking advantage of their innocent confusion, he charges forward with the axe like a gust of wind. One razor-sharp swing drops the enemy before it can react. Looking at the corpse, Kang Seon Ho wonders whether drowsiness counts as a debuff in this world. At the moment, he clearly has enough power to kill them with a single strike. The system immediately confirms that he has officially reached level 1 and earned 4 potential points. Wasting no time, he begins the real plan before the remaining monsters can wake up. Kang Seon Ho ignites the woodpile, sending thick smoke rolling into the cave. In survival life, nearly every early-stage creature shares one weakness: sudden natural phenomena can injure them severely. Burning them alive would be more effective, but he chooses smoke because he has no desire to clean a base reeking of charred corpses later. His strategy is to force the monsters out of their shelter while panicked and weakened. Inside the cave, the kobolds begin waking as the smoke chokes them. They scream wildly and flee outside one after another, unaware that death is waiting at the exit. Kang Seon Ho calculates that a normal kobold group contains 7 members. He expected 5 to rush out first, but something does not add up. The instant one kobold escapes the smoke, Kang Seon Ho meets it with a powerful axe swing. Wearing his gas mask, he stands in the gray haze like an executioner. The remaining monsters pour out in a line, roaring in panic. Without hesitation, Kang Seon Ho twists his body and drives all his strength into a horizontal slash. The axe blade traces a brilliant blue arc, sweeping away every creature that has just stepped outside. Cornered, the kobolds howl in terror. Kang Seon Ho quickly pulls out his spray can and attacks at close range, leaving them only enough time to scream in pain. A fatal strike crashes down and finishes the final enemy in an instant. Once everything is over, he drops to the ground outside, gasping from exhaustion. The fight was easier than expected, but the fatigue is no joke. A new status window announces that he has unlocked the utility systems. Kang Seon Ho nods, realizing that leveling works exactly like the game, and does not automatically increase his attributes. Reaching a new level also unlocks the system shops, making him thrilled with today's gains. Kang Seon Ho slowly enters the dark cave, where the surrounding darkness somehow gives him an unexpected sense of security. A bright smile appears when he realizes he finally owns a safe space that only he can access. But seeing the filthy, chaotic interior, he scratches his head and admits that cleaning must come first. Kang Seon Ho finally has a shelter of his own. Refusing to waste time, he immediately starts clearing the base. The cave floor is rough and uneven, but overall the place is excellent. It is slightly smaller than a standard base, yet more than enough for a beginning. He scrubs every corner while cursing the monster's disgusting lifestyle and working furiously to remove the stubborn grime they left behind. The labor is exhausting, but relief fills him because he secured a safe location before the 32-day deadline. To make the place livable, he decides on a major improvement. Muttering that he will connect it here, he runs a long water pipe from his restaurant, through the spatial gate, and straight into the cave. Armed with a powerful pressure washer, he launches a full-scale cleaning operation. He promises to turn this cave into the finest space possible and make it comfortable enough to survive in for at least a year. Water roars through the cavern, washing away every trace of the kobolds. As the black runoff gradually turns clear, he knows his impregnable fortress is taking shape. Looking toward the entrance from inside, he nods in satisfaction. The view is good, the cleaned ground is fairly level, and one sturdy door would make the place nearly perfect. He calculates that a few sleeping mats will be enough to create a decent bed. Then light from several strange stones catches his attention. They are mana crystals. Kang Seon Ho picks them up and discovers that they glow strongly enough to replace electric lights. Delighted, he spreads these natural lamps throughout the cave, transforming the once dark interior into a warm and sparkling space. It is finally starting to look like a real base. He smiles proudly at the result of his work. The next morning, he wakes in his familiar room with his entire body throbbing. "My whole body hurts," he groans while trying to move his arm. Looking at the painful web of injuries and bruises, he clicks his tongue and tells himself those scars were not earned for nothing. No matter how tired he feels, he knows he cannot stop. He studies the loot on the table, from sun apples to monster hides and a hunting knife. With a sigh, he admits he cannot bear eating another sun apple. Pushing aside his disgust, he picks up a small bag and decides to test the items first. Using the mana crystal materials, Kang Seon Ho begins making a recovery medicine by mixing ginkgo powder and oil in equal proportions. He stirs until the mixture becomes thick, and the system announces that he has successfully created a primitive ointment. As he spreads it over his wounded arm, the pain clearly eases. It really does help him recover a little. Although pleased that the medicine works like a stimulant, he still feels frustrated. Does he have to repeat this process every time? Thinking about how to improve his physical stats, Kang Seon Ho accepts that this brutal playstyle is unavoidable because the world's difficulty will rise sharply before the disaster begins. Rather than hiding in ruins, he realizes that a non-combat zone would offer far greater advantages. A bold idea suddenly flashes through his mind. Wait! What did I just think of? He imagines a massive ship at sea, despite knowing that such a route lies completely outside the game's main storyline. That night, Kang Seon Ho researches junk-covered islands and abandoned ships without rest. He wonders whether game logic will truly apply to reality. Either way, a giant ship would be far better than a dark cave. He decides to investigate the long-term underground events carefully so that he can build a flawless strategy. Looking at the enormous mobile warehouse of supplies piled on the rooftop, he tells himself money has become meaningless. The next morning, Kang Seon Ho begins transferring at least 100 boxes into his personal space, starting with food. While struggling to carry the supplies downstairs, he suddenly stops when he sees Mi-kyung standing at the entrance. She waves brightly and says good afternoon. Kang Seon Ho groans inwardly at her timing. Seeing him busy, Mi-kyung asks whether he is moving. Kang Seon Ho awkwardly answers yes. She immediately volunteers to become his unpaid porter, making him wonder whether he should reveal his secret. He apologizes for being so busy lately, and Mi-kyung perceptively notes that he looks much thinner than before. He quietly admits that she is right, then asks her for a favor. Soon, the two arrive at a hair salon. Mi-kyung asks what style he wants, and Kang Seon Ho answers without hesitation. Cut it all off. Surprised, Mi-kyung asks why. He calmly replies that he wants a fresh start. As she prepares, she notices that his shoulders and chest have become far more muscular and defined. Kang Seon Ho privately credits the insane physical training he began that morning. While working, Mi-kyung says her father is furious. He keeps complaining that residents are leaving and that the rental business is collapsing. Their conversation is interrupted when the doorbell announces another customer. A blond young man with tattoos covering both arms enters with an intimidating expression. He apparently wants Mi-kyung to join some kind of group, and because she has not agreed, his patience is wearing thin. He orders Mi-kyung to step aside so he can settle the matter. Unwilling to waste his limited time on a show-off, Kang Seon Ho immediately stands and tells him to get out. This place has no room for worthless thugs. Thinking he misheard, the blond man raises his chin and threatens him. What did you just say? But the killing pressure in Kang Seon Ho's eyes sends a chill through his body. He feels as if his life is in genuine danger. To preserve the last scraps of pride, he claims Kang Seon Ho is lucky today and then hurriedly leaves. Before leaving the salon, Kang Seon Ho takes the initiative and asks Mi-kyung to exchange phone numbers. She is surprised, and still shaken by the frightening pressure he displayed moments earlier. Back home, he immediately checks online communities. The name Kim Bap Lover has become the center of intense hatred and criticism. People are frantically searching for him and even threatening to punish the only person with secret game information who chose to disappear. Rumors that he often visits a local salon begin spreading, making Kang Seon Ho realize that his identity is in danger. He quickly sets those problems aside because preparing for the first disaster wave is far more important. After reading countless survival posts about the spores that devour steel, he firmly commands the spatial gate to open. An intense blue light erupts and fills the entire room. Over the next 2 days, he devotes all his attention to reinforcing the secret base. To expand the cramped cave, he turns himself into a miner, tirelessly breaking rock and carefully smoothing every surface. When night falls, he stands beneath the bright full moon and reflects on how rapidly his life has changed. In the silent darkness, he decides that fighting poison with poison may be the answer. Clenching his fist, he reminds himself that he is not a hero and owes the world no grand duty or noble responsibility. His only goal is to survive at any cost. But the moment he resolves himself and turns to leave, a strange sound comes from behind. He spins around and freezes. A bee creeper has appeared without warning. The horrifying skeletal creature, with glowing eyes and razor-sharp claws, is already closing in behind him. His heart pounds so violently that he cannot tell whether it is pure terror or the fear that the creature is about to devour it. The situation could not be worse. Then a tremendous explosion erupts, consuming everything in red flames. The entire forest sinks into a sea of fire, marking the beginning of the nightmare that will continue until the true apocalypse arrives. In the dark night and dense fog, Kang Seon Ho lies collapsed on the cold ground. One hand twitches, and then he suddenly jerks upright, coughing painfully. Still in shock, he crouches down and grabs his head, trying to remember what happened. Seeing the enemy's shattered bones scattered everywhere, he realizes the horrifying truth. That is right. A bee creeper really appeared. Kang Seon Ho stares at his hands and wonders how he survived its attack. The memory of the monster exploding at the brink of death returns with perfect clarity. He realizes he lost consciousness immediately after the bee creeper self-destructed, and the evidence of his lucky victory lies before him. Trembling, Kang Seon Ho picks up a brilliant blue crystal. It is the bee creeper's core. The system immediately congratulates him on reaching level 2, and his strength, agility, stamina, dexterity, and intelligence all rise together. He sighs in relief. The level up occurred exactly as expected, and at least he obtained the core. Because he spent so little time at level 1, however, he still has 10 unused potential points. Exhaustion crushes him, and his head feels ready to burst. Unable to endure another second, he uses the last of his strength to order the spatial gate open. The moment he reaches home, Kang Seon Ho begins treating his injuries. He clenches his teeth against the searing pain as medicine touches the open wounds. The sting spreads through every layer of flesh, forcing a groan from his throat. After roughly bandaging himself, total exhaustion overwhelms him. Muttering that he needs to rest, Kang Seon Ho collapses onto the sofa and falls into a deep sleep. Only when bright morning sunlight slips through the window does he slowly awaken after the exhausting night. Sitting up with less pain than before, he tells himself he feels better. Kang Seon Ho immediately opens the status window to review his gains. Strength, agility, stamina, dexterity, and intelligence are all at 5. He studies his 10 potential points like a wealthy investor deciding which property will produce the greatest return. Instead of wasting them impulsively, he decides there is no need to spend the points yet. Kang Seon Ho stands, grabs a bottle of water, and drinks deeply to clear his head. Before making any decisions, Kang Seon Ho wants to preserve his body in its current condition. There are only 2 ways to increase his stats. He can either grind levels or rely on equipment and special food that boosts his attributes. But survival life is unforgiving. Almost every stat-boosting item is guarded by a powerful boss monster. That is why he refuses to spend his potential points carelessly. He will only use them when the situation truly demands it. Those points are his emergency reserve. For now, he plans to find useful gear without putting his life at unnecessary risk, starting with the community forums. He searches the official site for hidden items, secret mechanics, and any survival tips that other players may have uncovered. 3 major incidents in the real world catch his attention. The Russian ship disaster happened last, while the Aspern incident came before it. The earliest event took place at 1 on June 26 at 5 in the afternoon. As he studies the timeline late into the night, his phone suddenly rings. Wondering who would call this late, he answers. At the Stabin Cafe, Mi-kyung immediately asks how he has been doing. She sounds genuinely worried, but Kang Seon Ho brushes it off with a joke, saying he is still alive even if one more hit might finish him. He insists that losing his parents did not turn him into the person she thinks he has become. Mi-kyung has cared about him since they were children. She still remembers the beating he suffered last winter, and the guilt has never left her. When he asks why she suddenly wanted to meet, she lowers her voice and confesses, "I awakened." She only tells him because she is worried. Kang Seon Ho jokes that he is jealous, then promises to keep her secret. He leaves the cafe carrying a tray of food, feeling lighter than before. At least now he knows Mi-kyung has a better chance of surviving. He completes his final online purchases, gathers the remaining supplies, and rents a vehicle for the next stage of his plan. After getting some sleep, he returns to the cave the following day and resumes crafting. He wasted too many points in the game, so this time he works with extreme care. Using the trainee blacksmith skill, he begins crushing the stones. A burst of sparks scorches his hand, but he successfully extracts a glowing fire seed from the material. He grinds it into powder, then mixes it with resin and hardener to create reflective paint that repels monsters. After installing the entrance to his base, Kang Seon Ho returns to reality and climbs into the rented vehicle. The cargo area is packed with supplies. With everything loaded, he is finally ready to depart. His destination is Yuri-san. Only 25 days remain before the apocalypse, and he parks beneath a relentless downpour. He reviews old guide videos one last time and carefully checks every piece of equipment. At midnight, he puts on a blue raincoat. Every light in the park has already gone dark. He moves deeper into the forest and waits for the monsters to appear, though the heavy rain may be keeping them hidden. Then a sound comes from directly behind him. A towering red-skinned red-eye ogre emerges from the darkness. It is only level 2, but it is already wandering freely in this world. Defeating it will grant him a valuable skill. Kang Seon Ho steadies his breathing and forces himself to remain calm. His strategy targets both the creature's instincts and its body. He activates a special luminous device designed to imitate a signal from its homeland. The red-eye ogre is immediately drawn toward the light. The instant it closes in, Kang Seon Ho throws a flash grenade. He has roughly 20 seconds before its vision recovers. Without wasting a moment, he activates the next support device. He begins stripping away the monster's thick hide while it thrashes blindly in pain. The ogre lashes out, but Kang Seon Ho slips past the attack. A glowing blue blade flashes in his hand and drives deep into the creature's body. He then shoves a burning container into its mouth. The explosion erupts from inside, and the monster crashes to the ground. Even an ogre dies when you destroy it from within. The corpse continues radiating fierce heat. It burns like a massive torch. Only after confirming the kill does Kang Seon Ho finally collapse from exhaustion. The system announces a level up. He earns the title Ogre Hunter, additional stats, and resistance to extreme heat. His level surges to 5, and the corpse is identified as a Red Eye leader. Leaving such a high-level body behind is dangerous. Thousands of awakened people may already be hiding throughout the country. He can almost feel unseen figures watching from the darkness. Once society collapses, selfish people like them will turn the world into a living hell. For now, Kang Seon Ho focuses on the monster's heart, which contains an enormous amount of mana. The title corpse cleaner activates. He quickly gathers the loot and prepares to leave. He opens a spatial gate. Before going, he digs a deep pit to hide the corpse from the police and military. The title's effect boosts his agility and concealment, allowing him to erase his presence. He escapes before the temporary enhancement wears off. Kang Seon Ho starts the vehicle and puts as much distance as possible between himself and the forest before dawn. After checking his phone, he confirms that the basic preparations are finally complete. He is still not strong enough for large-scale hunts. Opening his weapon chest, he studies the swords, maces, and daggers inside. In the end, he chooses a wooden mace. It looks ordinary in reality, but it will be far more useful once modern weapons stop working. Sharp weapons can get stuck during close combat, so a blunt weapon is safer. Just then, the doorbell rings at 10 at night. Kang Seon Ho steps into the dark hallway and approaches the door cautiously. Mi-kyung is standing outside. She says there is something important she needs to discuss with him. She is carrying food, and the countdown now shows only 24 days remaining. A short while later, Mi-kyung is sitting inside his home, and an awkward silence fills the room. She pushes the food toward him and urges him to eat before it gets cold. Then she explains that she wants to share everything she knows about survival life. There is no room for romance when the apocalypse is approaching. She simply believes sharing information with a trustworthy person is the right thing to do. Kang Seon Ho quietly opens his laptop, planning to exchange information through the online forums without revealing too much. Mi-kyung explains the coming Iron Plague and the monsters that will appear afterward. According to her information, perception and vision will become the most important survival stats. She then asks why so many players seem to hate Kimbap Lover. When she questions why he never shared what he knew, Kang Seon Ho pretends to have no idea what she is talking about. Mi-kyung reveals that she refused an invitation from in his group, led by a blonde man covered in tattoos. The group is deeply immoral. They use threats, coercion, and secret recordings, while Inha himself is a dangerous pervert. Kang Seon Ho warns her that once the law collapses, people's worst instincts will surface without restraint. He tells her not to trust anyone. Mi-kyung looks straight at him and asks, "What about you?" She wants them to form a team. Kang Seon Ho's immediate goal is to reach level 10 before the tutorial ends and the system shop opens. But higher levels also attract stronger monsters. Keeping Mi-kyung near him could place her in even greater danger. He pretends that he might turn into a zombie and uses it as an excuse to refuse. Mi-kyung responds by revealing her teleportation ability. Her trait is blink. She demonstrates it by vanishing and appearing behind him, then says, "You are the only person who knows." She hopes they can cooperate if both of them remain human and survive the outbreak. Back at the base, Kang Seon Ho starts constructing a defensive fence with thick support posts. He reinforces it with barbed wire and installs infrared sensors around the perimeter. Admiring the finished fence, he considers investing a point in dexterity before returning to transport more supplies. With the goods safely stored, he begins planning metal partitions for the interior. The bitter underground cold makes him sneeze uncontrollably. He needs a proper sleeping area before the temperature drops further. First, however, he checks the latest news before the internet is cut off. After giving final instructions to his employees and transferring responsibility for the business, Kang Seon Ho returns to reality. He visits a motorcycle shop and runs into Hyung-jun, a muscular gym owner he has known for years. Hyung-jun asks what brings him there, then immediately notices that Kang Seon Ho has been training. Kang Seon Ho blames muscle memory and the renovation work. Hyung-jun admits that lately it feels as though the world is about to end, and he has heard the same rumors. One of his gym members claimed that status windows and a zombie pandemic were real, then showed them proof. The man demonstrated an awakened ability by levitating in midair. neither Kang Seon Ho nor Hyung-jun has publicly awakened. The member is now heading to a television station after arranging a meeting with a producer, hoping to expose the truth. Hyung-jun says something even stranger happened afterward. A shooting broke out at the studio. A petition demanding the truth about the June 26th shooting appeared at 11 in the morning, but every trace of the information quickly vanished. The media called it a spontaneous workplace shooting, yet the military and police response suggests the incident was far more complicated. With the entire area sealed off, Kang Seon Ho says goodbye and leaves. Hyung-jun calls after him, telling him to take some protein. As Kang Seon Ho walks away, he connects the incidents and realizes the government must already know something. He opens the files again and compares them with the timing of the first omen. He hid the red-eye ogre's corpse in the other world, and the shooting happened at an extremely sensitive moment. Someone may have leaked crucial information to the government. That person may have accessed top-secret police records and begun acting from the moment the first omen appeared. They are probably an introverted or support-type awakened person who prefers to use the government rather than move openly. An invisible hand is controlling the authorities from behind the scenes. Even the president may be nothing more than a pawn. In Kang Seon Ho's mind, a red-cloaked shadow stands behind the president, silently waiting for the apocalypse to begin. So who is really pulling the strings? Kang Seon Ho narrows the suspects down to 4 people, the creator of Survival Life and the 3 other veteran players. After considering every possibility, he decides to rule out the game's creator. It is not impossible, but the people who designed this apocalypse would probably be the first to avoid facing it themselves. Besides, if the creator truly controlled the government, they would never have let him kill the red-eye ogre so easily. That leaves the 3 veteran players as his prime suspects. Studying the list, Kang Seon Ho wonders whether the top-ranked player arranged all of this. If his instincts are right, there is no reason to share his knowledge with the government. Exhausted, he drops his pen and mutters that he no longer knows what to believe. Even Kang Seon Ho is nothing like his in-game character in real life, so the top player may also be completely different from what he remembers. Still, he misses his former teammates enough to trust them for now. Revealing the information would not stop the coming disaster anyway. To greet the apocalypse in style, Kang Seon Ho must keep a low profile. 2 days later, he stares proudly at the progress inside his secret cave base. All the food and supplies are neatly arranged on shelves. Phase 1 of stockpiling is complete, so he begins planning Phase 2, installing metal racks and drilling deeper through the rock walls. Looking around, he realizes the base is more cramped than expected. He has reinforced and waterproofed every section, but everything must fully dry before he can store more equipment. He puts that problem aside and focuses on the next task. Then he pulls out a high-end drone and cannot hide his excitement. The drone rises above an endless mountain forest as dense as the Amazon. Kang Seon Ho guides it smoothly and marvels at how incredible the machine is. With the drone, he can scout every corner without exposing himself to danger. The expensive device also creates a real-time map with ease. It is a complete game-changer, and he is glad he spent the extra money. The surrounding terrain gradually appears in sharp detail on the control screen. Mountain ranges stretch across the north, placing his base near the center of the region. A vast lake lies to the west, while an ocean of forest spreads across the east. To the south is a deep blue sea filled with terrifying creatures, all of them boss-level threats. After mapping the terrain, he begins checking the valley's ordinary ecosystem. Then he spots a familiar location. It is where he killed the bee creeper, but as the drone approaches, he discovers that the corpse has completely vanished. At first, he wonders whether a bear ate it. Then he remembers the bee creeper was not formed from a goblin skeleton. The ground is covered in confusing tracks, including unmistakable goblin footprints. The valley is only about 1.8 kilometers from his shelter, close enough to be a serious threat. Seeing no goblins nearby, he decides to recall the drone. He cannot risk losing one of his 4 valuable drones. As it returns, the device keeps transmitting footage while he records observations and sketches the map. He now understands the broad terrain and wildlife of the other world. To learn the finer details, however, he must inspect each location in person, so he prepares his trusted gear. His first destination is the nearest swamp, where he wants to test whether crops can grow. Fully armed, he enters the forest, but an alert from his phone suddenly makes him freeze. Is that the infrared sensor? The warning shows goblins near the fence he recently installed. Kang Seon Ho crouches down and studies the fresh footprints to determine their direction. What has come this time? He counts roughly 5 creatures moving through the area and recognizes them as the goblins he has been searching for. Instead of feeling afraid, he is delighted that the prey has delivered itself to his doorstep. He finally has his targets. Hidden from sight, he watches the goblins argue loudly over food and supplies. This is the perfect moment for an ambush. From behind a tree, Kang Seon Ho slowly raises his weapon. An arrow tears through the air and buries itself in a goblin's skull, killing it instantly. The others panic as unseen attacks keep dropping their companions. They search the forest wildly but cannot locate the enemy concealed in the shadows. Their screams echo through the trees. Kang Seon Ho rushes in with his axe and finishes the wounded monsters so quickly that they see only faint streaks of blue before collapsing. Another powerful horizontal slash sends one more goblin to its death. Kang Seon Ho surveys the battlefield and counts 4 bodies. He calls out, "So what will you do now?" The remaining goblins clutch their weapons and torches as death approaches. Smiling arrogantly, he adds that even a villain deserves a speech before the fight. The goblins scream and surround him. Their paralysis poison failed, so they choose close combat instead. Kang Seon Ho accepts the challenge, knowing everything is unfolding exactly as planned. One devastating swing wipes out the entire group. The system announces that Kang Seon Ho has reached level 6 and gained 16 potential points. Panting with relief, he admits the gamble only worked because they were confused and weakened. The hunt is over, but the real trial begins in 21 days. A level-up aura surrounds him. Strangely, only his health has risen sharply, though he is relieved that none of his other stats fell after the battle. After digging a pit and burying the monsters to erase the evidence, Kang Seon Ho looks at the fresh mound and declares the graves complete. Now comes the looting. He picks up a bright red sun apple and realizes this is what it looks like before being crushed. Finding plenty of vegetable oil nearby, he considers harvesting the area regularly. He then examines the lead hobgoblin's bag. Something inside immediately catches his attention. Kang Seon Ho carefully pulls out a small blue creature and stares in surprise. It is a toad, and he cannot understand why the goblins were carrying it. A foul stench suddenly hits him as sticky green fluid leaks from the creature, revealing the truth. This is the source of the goblin's paralysis poison. Kang Seon Ho immediately decides to raise the toad. Its venom could improve his resistance and coat his weapons, making future hunts far easier. He names the little creature Juk and promises to take good care of it. The system confirms that the hobgoblin died from poison and that Kang Seon Ho obtained its poison sac. He wonders whether this creature ever existed in survival life, or whether it is another real-world hidden mechanic like his spatial gate. He remembers the game's shutdown notice and briefly wonders whether the developers released one final update while he was away. That makes no sense so close to closure, however, so he sets the mystery aside and continues exploring. At the end of the trail, he discovers a clear stream. The system identifies it as pure spring water with a stable flow, and he cautiously takes a small sample. Once he confirms it is safe, he breathes a sigh of relief. The base now has drinking water, so there is no need to visit the swamp yet. He records the location in his notebook. As expected, the area contains more valuable resources. He finds additional sun apples and scattered containers of vegetable oil, then shamelessly harvests a huge amount of manna fruit and sends it through the gate. After gathering enough oil, he leaves some behind for later. He also marks trees along the return route so he will not lose his way. Satisfied with the haul, Kang Seon Ho heads home. The next morning, he begins a new task at his restaurant. Wearing full protective gear, he feeds his newest companion. At his command to open wide, the blue toad snaps up its prey with a swift flick of its tongue. He learns that Juk needs a temperature between 18 and 25 degrees Celsius. Worried it may freeze, he resolves to keep it warm, then smiles at how cute it looks while eating. Caring for the new pet is only one of many jobs. The most time-consuming task is producing medicinal ointment. As usual, he gets carried away and makes a mountain of it. Staring at the overloaded table, he wonders what he is supposed to do with so much medicine. Then he decides to share some with Hyung-jun. That night, Kang Seon Ho visits his acquaintance's gym. Hyung-jun is lifting weights while drinking protein. Surprised by the late visit, Kang Seon Ho quickly apologizes for arriving so late. Hyung-jun thought he would come tomorrow and jokes that the heavy bag must contain an entire tub of protein powder. Instead, he lifts the jar of ointment and asks what it is. Kang Seon Ho explains that it is extremely effective on wounds. Seeing his serious expression, Hyung-jun teases that he is starting to look like a doctor. Kang Seon Ho simply tells him to use it because it truly works. The mood turns somber when they mention the recent shooting, and Hyung Joon admits the gym has become much quieter as people fear the government's orderly apocalypse plan. The gym member who went to the television station shared his information before leaving. At the member's request, Hyung Joon is now turning the gym into a shelter. Kang Seon Ho asks how many people will join. Hearing that there are around 20, he warns that any group larger than 10 is dangerous. Even so, Hyung Joon refuses to abandon his members, proving his unwavering loyalty. Asked about his own plans, Kang Seon Ho says he is still considering everything. Hyung Joon tells him to come here if he has nowhere else to go, even though Kang Seon Ho has not awakened publicly. A sudden scream tears through the silence. Kang Seon Ho reacts instantly and rushes to check the window. At the base of the building, Mi-kyung lies motionless on the cold ground in the darkness. When she begins to wake, Kang Seon Ho anxiously asks how she feels and whether she remembers what happened. Still dazed, Mi-kyung only recalls someone suddenly attacking her from behind. Furious at the cowardly ambush, Hyung Joon tells Kang Seon Ho to stay with her while he searches the area. Despite the warning that it may be dangerous, he goes alone. Mi-kyung adds that everything suddenly became unnaturally dark. No one covered her eyes, it felt as though darkness itself swallowed her. Kang Seon Ho shudders as the warning signs become real. He orders Mi-kyung to use blink immediately if it ever happens again. Although she hesitates, he promises to send her more defensive equipment, and insists she carry it at all times. The world will only become more brutal before the apocalypse officially begins. There is a famous saying, in any group of 3, at least one person will be terrible. That is especially true of trolls. They exist everywhere, but survival life became their paradise because the developers barely intervened and reports changed nothing. The trolls simply pretended to be normal players and joined unsuspecting teams. A newly joined blonde man would cheerfully test his microphone, earning the group's trust. Then the trolls would lead the entire team into a monster-infested zone and wipe everyone out. They acted friendly toward beginners, offering to carry them through the game. Once their victims relaxed, they murdered them from behind, stole all their equipment, and manipulated teammates into fighting one another. The trolls stood back and laughed while everything fell apart. Their sabotage helped kill survival life within a year, reducing its player count from more than 5,000 to only 4. In truth, only 4 players remained because Kang Seon Ho's team personally taught the last trolls an unforgettable lesson. He remembers this now because the current chaos gives those same predators the perfect chance to return. After the shooting, the survival life community erupts with frantic posts. What shocks Kang Seon Ho most is the deliberate misinformation spreading across the message board. Someone is even selling his old videos for 1.2 million, claiming they are rare footage of Kim Bap Lover as a rookie and branding him a professional troll. Kang Seon Ho stares at the baseless accusations, wondering when he ever did such things. He suspects the old scammers are gathering again to exploit as many people as possible. He cannot understand how anyone could invent such nonsense. Putting his irritation aside, he stands and stretches. The rumors do not matter, he needs more training. He returns to the dangerous world and thinks about people who specialize in ordinary hobbies or traditional weapons. Everything Kang Seon Ho learned, however, focused on killing monsters and people inside spatial gates. He knows those rough techniques would be far less effective in reality, where an ordinary body cannot endure much punishment. Something is definitely coming. Standing in the forest, Kang Seon Ho reminds himself to prepare thoroughly, especially because he is not a professional athlete. He studies his hands and decides to test what he can do now. His supplies include a primitive wooden mace, a wooden slingshot, and clay ammunition. The equipment is not terrible. It cannot compare with a gun, but it is better than having nothing. He lifts the slingshot and notes its versatility. After a test shot, however, he shakes his head in disappointment. The clay pellets are far too weak to be effective. Accepting the limits of such a crude ranged weapon, he returns to the most practical option. Kang Seon Ho raises the weapon and declares that he will ultimately rely on the primitive wooden mace. Once the Iron Plague turns modern weapons into scrap, a crude but powerful spiked club will be ideal. He begins intense drills, swinging with all his strength until he becomes accustomed to its weight. Kang Seon Ho knows that when civilization falls, countless people will rob and hurt others without hesitation. Inside his mind, he simulates fierce battles against enemies attacking from every direction. He focuses on each movement and strengthens the connection between his will and the weapon. With a roar, Kang Seon Ho unleashes a thunderous strike. At last, he is beginning to grasp genuine combat technique. He stops before overworking his body and looks toward the lonely forest space. Perhaps it is time to close the restaurant permanently and devote himself entirely to survival. A strange noise suddenly puts him on alert. Has something broken into his shelter? He quickly puts on a protective helmet, then freezes when he finds an enormous creature lying motionless beside the barbed wire fence. It is a gray wolf so huge that Kang Seon Ho could ride on its back. As it lies completely still, he wonders whether it is already dead. A tiny white-furred pup crawls from beneath the mother wolf's body and whimpers beside the cold corpse. Realizing the mother died protecting her child, Kang Seon Ho softly asks whether the pup has lost its mother. He cannot leave the body there. If the wolf is a monster, it may transform into a bee creeper, while the smell of blood could attract even more dangerous predators. Taking up a shovel, Kang Seon Ho digs a deep grave and gives the mother wolf a proper burial. The lonely pup reminds him of himself at 6 years old. Memories of his old dog, Bu, return and soften his heart. Moved by sympathy, he gently picks up the pup and says its mother will rest here. He promises to install a magical door at the gate so it can visit her whenever it wants. Kang Seon Ho takes a strip of dried meat from his pocket, offers it to the pup, and makes a proposal. He will make sure it never goes hungry until it grows up. In return, he asks the pup to lend him its exceptional sense of smell. Kang Seon Ho smiles and asks, "Do you want to come with me?" The system confirms that he has named the gray wolf Dingo and successfully completed the taming process. From that moment on, Dingo officially becomes Kang Seon Ho's loyal companion. Their fight for survival will continue until the apocalypse arrives, and the countdown now shows only 19 days. Simply put, his puppy is a genius. On the rooftop, Kang Seon Ho begins an enthusiastic training session and asks whether Dingo is ready. The little wolf smoothly follows each command, shaking hands, turning around, and sitting exactly as taught. Dingo barks excitedly and performs every task perfectly. The training moves on to harder commands that require focus, including lying down and staying silent. Kang Seon Ho raises a finger to his lips and whispers, "Quiet." Dingo obeys and waits patiently in a highly alert state. Kang Seon Ho announces that only one final test remains. "Jump!" He tosses an item into the air, and Dingo springs upward to catch it before it falls. Kang Seon Ho is stunned by Dingo's ability. The pup is even more special than expected, with a natural gift for tracking that will be invaluable in the coming apocalypse. He hugs the little wolf affectionately, and praises him as a good boy. At this rate, Dingo will soon become an irreplaceable partner. Then a phone notification interrupts the peaceful moment. Hyung Jun has messaged him for the first time. Following the message, Kang Seon Ho searches for videos of someone floating online, and can only stare in amazement. A television program called Super Power X is broadcasting an awakened person live. Before millions of viewers, the man floats in midair and warns of monsters and zombies. The clip explodes to the top of the trends, shattering the government's control over the media. Sitting silently on the sofa while petting Dingo, Kang Seon Ho realizes society is plunging into chaos. This revelation is the spark that will push public fear beyond the government's control. The raging protests outside prove that the world is losing its remaining order. Kang Seon Ho knows the second omen could erupt at any moment. Once the hobgoblins attack, the pressure on the government will become unbearable. Rather than get swept into the turmoil, he will stay quiet and continue his own plan. He apologizes to Dingo and announces that their field training begins today, earning an excited bark in response. He asks whether his partner is ready, and Dingo answers loudly. Together they enter the forest to scout an unfamiliar area and prepare for the coming clash with the hobgoblins. Kang Seon Ho presents a small pouch carrying the monster's distinctive scent and asks whether Dingo can find it. The first priority is teaching him to identify their smell accurately. The pup tirelessly sniffs the ground and soon locates traces of the hidden creatures. Next, Kang Seon Ho must ensure that Dingo will not panic when real danger appears. He signals the wolf to retreat and remain silent, then tests whether Dingo can coordinate his movements on command. At Kang Seon Ho's signal, Dingo shoots forward. A blue rabbit appears, and the young wolf pounces on it in an instant, proving his hunting ability. Kang Seon Ho praises him enthusiastically. This is the test that determines whether they can become true partners. Dingo ran away last time, but this time is completely different. Lifting the rabbit, Kang Seon Ho notices its unusually tough hide and claws far sharper than those of an ordinary animal. Creatures from another world truly are different. Even the harmless ones are remarkably resilient. The pair continue deeper into the forest. Kang Seon Ho becomes curious about Dingo's perception stat and wonders how high it would measure. Spear in hand, he heads toward the valley to investigate. When he touches an unfamiliar plant, the system identifies it as a wild cucumber. He freezes in disbelief. It may be an ordinary vegetable, but to someone stockpiling necessities, it is treasure. Dingo moves closer out of curiosity, but Kang Seon Ho stops him before he can take a bite. The pup is not ready to eat it yet. He gives Dingo water, then resumes harvesting. Soon, another plant catches his eye, and he wonders whether it could be stevia. The system confirms it is stevia. Delighted, Kang Seon Ho praises Dingo and promises him a reward, then digs up the entire patch. This unexpected bounty will be extremely useful on future hunts. After gathering enough plants, he takes Dingo to the stream to fish. He asks the pup to watch for strange smells or sounds, then studies the fish swimming below, pleased that they are not mutated monsters. Catching them grants no experience or system items, but fresh fish is still irresistible. Dingo is growing quickly, and the fish will provide the protein he needs. After spearing a large fish, Kang Seon Ho packs the equipment and tells his small partner that the second renovation phase is ready. It is time to go home. Dingo barks excitedly as they leave the forest and return to the city. Kang Seon Ho passes the pet shop connected to Mikyung and sees workers removing its sign. He is grateful that he came that morning to buy equipment for Dingo, then sighs as the empty storefront confirms the shop has closed for good. He is still fortunate enough not to be desperately scavenging for survival. Looting is becoming inevitable, and without his advanced preparation, he knows he would have joined the same chaotic crowds. Only one final step remains. While lost in thought, Kang Seon Ho turns around and discovers Hyung Joon standing behind him. Before he can greet him, Hyung Joon flicks him hard on the forehead and complains that he never answered his calls. Seeing Dingo growl defensively, Hyung Joon asks whether he got a dog, and Kang Seon Ho introduces the pup by name. Hyung Joon crouches down and praises Dingo's handsome appearance. Kang Seon Ho then asks why his senior came all the way here to find him. Hyung Joon casually says he only wanted to see whether Kang Seon Ho was alive or dead. Under the younger man's suspicious stare, he scratches his head and admits he was genuinely worried. Then Hyung Joon's expression turns grave. Folding his arms, he reveals important information from a former member. They have identified the people who attacked Mikyung. The group led by Kim Cheon-joon is targeting her. Even Kim Sang-ho from the mountainside neighborhood is involved. Kang Seon Ho asks how Hyung Joon uncovered everything so quickly. Hyung Joon says their actions became so obvious that the truth practically revealed itself. The group made no effort to conceal its movements. After asking around, Hyung Joon learned that Mikyung had encountered Kim Cheon-joon's people before. The group is also tearing itself apart. 3 members are missing, the remaining personalities constantly clash, and someone refused an invitation to join. After the incident with Mikyung, several women are also preparing to leave. When Hyung Joon confronted them, they claimed they only wanted to establish an office inside Mikyung's shop. In the current chaos, that was an open threat, so he warned them it was a serious mistake. Kang Seon Ho checks the phone and sees that the original group of 18 now has only 4 followers left. The group chat has also collapsed from 30 members to only a handful within days. Hyung Joon bitterly confirms that only 2 members in the entire group have awakened. Kang Seon Ho gives a cynical smile. This is what happens when someone tries to help others. Most people ultimately protect only themselves. Hyung Joon then shows him a photo of his daughter and wonders whether he should call his ex-wife. Kang Seon Ho understands that Hyung Joon has far more to protect than he does. Faced with a question of justice, Kang Seon Ho wonders whether he is making the right choice. He tells Hyung Joon that even if they do not want to hurt others, absolute evil must be eliminated once disaster destroys the law. Hyung Joon studies him and says such words do not sound like him. Kang Seon Ho scratches his head awkwardly and admits he does not know why he brought it up. A piercing scream suddenly shocks them, followed by repeated beeps from an alarm device. Hyung Joon wonders whether it is a child safety alarm. Kang Seon Ho's face darkens with killing intent. After checking his phone, he hands Dingo to Hyung Joon and asks him to watch the pup. At an abandoned building, Mikyung grips the alarm in terror as she is cornered at the edge of a towering rooftop. In-ha, the blonde leader, coldly orders her to stop pretending and come downstairs. Mikyung demands to know why they are doing this, but the group no longer cares who may be watching. Losing patience, In-ha tells her to reconsider. When she continues resisting, he declares that they will handle matters their own way. Ma Dungin, an awakened support user, boasts that the area is being redeveloped and no one will come here, so resistance is pointless. Ma Dongin raises a powerful flashlight and reminds Mi Kyung that they also possess special abilities. Then he begins a countdown to break her resolve. Hidden in darkness below the building, Kang Seon Ho watches in black clothing and prepares to strike. As Ma Dongin counts, he quietly pulls back his slingshot. Kang Seon Ho launches a sudden ranged attack. The instant the count reaches 3, Ma Dongin manages only a broken sound before dropping to the ground. Seeing his companion fall, Manhwa screams his name in panic. Kang Seon Ho rushes forward like a whirlwind before the blonde man can react. One punch drops Manhwa instantly. Kang Seon Ho then moves to confront the remaining enemies closing in around him. A strange purple-black fog suddenly pours from Ma Dongin and blankets the area. Kang Seon Ho recognizes it as the power that stole Mi Kyung's vision earlier. He slips through the fog and counters with a precise club strike to the enemy's head. Pausing to catch his breath, he realizes these awakened opponents are far more dangerous than anyone he has faced before. From the rooftop, Mi Kyung screams for Kang Seon Ho to be careful. Before he can turn, a man in a baseball cap closes in with a weapon blazing with red energy. The blade grazes Kang Seon Ho and sends him to one knee in agony. Even a glancing strike has inflicted terrifying damage. The leader looks down at him and identifies him as Kang Seon Ho. Gritting his teeth, Kang Seon Ho is stunned that someone already possesses such a powerful attack skill this early. Kim Cheon-jun declares that he will cripple him here and orders the others to move. The blonde Manhwa also activates his power, surrounding himself with burning electricity. Furious at the interference, he vows to make Kang Seon Ho pay. Surrounded by deadly enemies, Kang Seon Ho feels as though his skull could be split apart at any moment. Facing the electrically charged attacker, he wonders whether he must use Bear Booster. Before Manhwa can charge, Dingo bites down hard on his arm, making the blonde man scream in pain. Bystanders stare in shock at the violence unfolding in broad daylight. Kang Seon Ho coldly warns his opponents to step back before the situation goes too far. Hyung-jun arrives at the perfect moment, while calling emergency services. His firm offer of a compromise forces the group to hesitate. Realizing the situation has turned against him, Manhwa grudgingly orders a retreat. Mi Kyung rushes over and touches Kang Seon Ho's cracked helmet with trembling hands, asking whether he is hurt. Seeing how deeply Mi Kyung and Hyung-jun care, Kang Seon Ho falls silent. For a moment, they remind him of the legendary players who once fought beside him. Hyung-jun urges him to visit a hospital, but Kang Seon Ho refuses because he cannot waste precious time recovering. Instead, he asks his senior to take Mi Kyung home safely. Leaving the hesitant Mi Kyung behind, he takes Dingo and returns to his unfinished work. Back home, Kang Seon Ho immediately resumes renovating the base, drilling relentlessly through the cold stone walls. He has no choice but to leave quickly if he wants to protect his secret. Kang Seon Ho knows that traveling with them would prevent him from carrying out his most important plans for the future. He resolves to crush every opponent with his own fists, and save what little time remains. If the Sun Hobgoblin plan succeeds, he will surpass them by at least 3 levels. By then, the surrounding monsters will be too powerful for them to form a team safely. Kang Seon Ho works without rest and loses track of time until he notices how late it has become. At last, he finishes installing a sturdy heater and chimney system in the underground base. Now he can finally sleep through the night without fearing the bitter cold. Dingo happily curls up beside the warmth of the new heater. Kang Seon Ho continues transporting and installing a generator and surveillance cameras to secure his fortress. He also adds solar panels to maintain an independent long-term power supply. Looking over the nearly completed base, Kang Seon Ho smiles with confidence and decides to work through the night until every final task is done. He will be ready for whatever comes when the apocalypse truly begins.